Welcome to Tea
and E
with the T. I'm your host, Teresa.
I'm your co-host, Edwin.
Today is part 2 of Gabby Petito's story. Viewer and listener discretion is advised. This episode contains discussion of sensitive topics that may be distressing for some audiences. Please take care while listening, and if these topics are triggering for you, we encourage you to prioritize your well-being. Last episode, we ended off on Gabby Petito's backstory, the backstory of Brian Laundrie and his family and her family. And we talked about the van life as well.
Mm-hmm.
They started traveling. They were 41 days in. They got stopped by the cops. And that situation happened with them. And they made it seem like she was the main aggressor in that situation. We ended off on the subject of her talking to her ex, basically reaching out to somebody, kind of an SOS, asking for help. But that's where we ended off. So,
She knows she's in some deep poo-poo.
She's starting to realize that a lot of things are not okay, and she needs to get out of the situation. I'm going to start off with today on the incident that happened of the day that she disappeared. The incident that happened with the cops, that was August 12th. Now, moving on to August 27th, so already like maybe 2 weeks. 2 weeks?
August 12th and 27th, that's about 14 days, 2 weeks.
So 2 weeks since the situation that happened with the cops. They were now in Jackson, Wyoming. That day, they ended up going to Mary Piglet's Tex-Mex. So they ended up going to a restaurant called Mary Piglet's. And they ate there. This is
after the conversation and everything. After he came back with the ex.
I'm sorry. Yes, I didn't mention that. So he's already back. He's already back, and they're already back too. It was just a day that he was gonna be gone when he went, because I know we talked about it in the last episode.
Mm-hmm.
He went to empty out a unit storage, and left Gabby in a hotel in Utah, and it was just for one night, and that's when she contacted her ex. So now he's back to traveling with Gabby. And now they're in Wyoming. That makes sense?
Yeah.
Okay. So that day on August 27th at 1:11 p.m., Mary Piglet's Tex-Mex was a restaurant they went to go eat at. So they went to have lunch there. And everything was fine. Everything was, it was a nice day. But from what we heard from people at the restaurant and even like the servers, they ended up having a really bad argument. We're not 100% sure what exactly happened, but there's text messages between Brian and Gabby where it kind of shows what the situation was and why he was upset. But he was mostly upset at her and at the server and at every server basically in the restaurant. So he was just really upset. And everybody was just staring. Everybody was just looking. He would go back and forth into the restaurant. And he just seemed really like frustrated. And Gabby was crying the whole entire time. Gabby was apologizing to everybody. I'm sorry, like, for the way he is. Like, I'm sorry that he's acting this way. Like, she would just be apologizing to everybody. And he would just be yelling at everyone. Like, he was demanding a refund. But let me get into the messages between Gabby and Brian. So Gabby and Brian, basically, they had a conversation when she was in the bathroom. She went to the bathroom and she felt sick. She told Brian, "Hey, can you ask for the check? I think the chicken made me sick." And Brian's like, "Oh, okay, let me ask for the check."
Gabby said the chicken made her sick.
Mm-hmm. And Brian was like, "Oh, let me ask for the check." And then she's like, "Yeah, I don't want to pay for it because I just don't want to eat something that made me sick or pay for something that made me sick."
Mm-hmm.
So that's what Gabby said, right? And so Brian was like, "Oh my God, like, I'll just wait until you get out." So that's when she gets out and the whole situation comes down.
Yeah.
So it looks like he might have been just upset at the fact that Gabby was sick or felt sick. And now he has to do this whole mess where he has to like ask for a refund, or she didn't want to pay for it, or he didn't want to pay for it, whatever, or she didn't. And I guess he just didn't want to do all of that, or he was getting annoyed that Gabby was sick or feeling sick or whatever the case. I don't know, right? But it looks like that was the reason why. Okay. So now, fast forward, they ended up getting out of the restaurant and they left. Now, at 2:11 p.m., they were spotted on surveillance on the cameras outside of Whole Foods. So, outside of Whole Foods, you see them park the van, and it looks like Brian is upset because Brian, you don't see Gabby, but you see Brian on the driver's side, on his side of the van, and he comes out of the driver's side and he just slams the door shut, like if he was mad. We don't know exactly what happened during that time when they were driving from the Tex-Mex, the restaurant, to Whole Foods. We don't know, right? The only people that know is them, whatever they were arguing about. So they ended up getting out. Then you see them go into the store. You see them, talking. You see them walking around or whatever. And then they leave the store. That was the last time that we saw Gabby in video. Okay. So that was at 2:11 p.m. on August 27th, 2021. That was the last time she was seen. Gabby's mom that day ended up reaching out to Gabby asking how they were doing. So at this time, they were supposed to be in the Grand Teton, Wyoming. So Gabby texts back, "I'm fine. I convinced Brian to go camp out in the woods so I can have the van to myself. It's what he wants to do anyway. I don't care. He said I can have the van if I paid him." That's what Gabby texted her mom, right? That was like around 7:15 p.m. when these text messages were being what's it called? Yeah, sent. Gabby's mom states back, "Are you guys breaking up?" Gabby goes, "No, I just said I could make more money as a solo female lifer." So, van lifer, sorry. And then she puts a laughing face. And then she goes, "I'm driving to a campsite now." So those were the text messages that were sent that day, and
so
those are
she
the
was
last.
Gonna leave him camping there, and she's gonna take the van.
That's from what the text messages. It kind of seemed like she was trying to make a joke, like she would be better off as a solo van lifer and a vlogger, as
And
a
she
solo
would
female.
pay him for the van. Didn't she work those 50 hours?
Yes. So we'll get to how the text messages kind of sound weird. Even Gabby's mom was like, "This doesn't sound like Gabby. Like, this is just weird." So that was around 7:15. And there's a few things that I do want to pick up on later on about the time, but I'll explain later. Okay, so before that, situation, supposedly it was around 7:15. That was the last time that she spoke to her mom. Now, August 29th, fast forward. There were some suspicious acts that were going on with Brian. At 6:30 to 6:45, Brian ended up getting picked up by a hitchhiker. So this lady picked him up, and he was just, walking down the street, and he wanted to go to Jackson, Wyoming. So he wasn't at Jackson, Wyoming at that point. The Grand Teton was a little bit further from Jackson, Wyoming. Jackson, Wyoming is basically like it's like Atlanta. It's like the main city there. He got picked up by the hitchhiker. He asked to be taken to Jackson, Wyoming. She wasn't heading to Jackson. So she was like, "Look, I'm going north." And he said, "Okay, can you just take me to Spread Creek?" That's another campsite, right? So she was like, "Okay, that's like literally 10 minutes from where from where we're at."
Yeah.
So Brian is the one getting on in this car, and the hitchhiker is the one explaining this. Okay? This was in the documentary as well.
Yeah.
So she states, "Okay, yeah, I can take you. That's fine. It's like 10 minutes away from where we're at right now." And they go, right? As they're driving, she makes a sharp turn and she has this book on her dashboard. Now, this book lands on his lap. And as soon as it lands on his lap, he laughs and then puts it back on the dashboard. You know what this book was?
The Bible.
The Bible. So it was just really weird. Even the hitchhiker was like, I mean, the lady that was picking up him, she was just like, it was weird because he just laughed and put it back on the dashboard like nothing. So it was just really weird. And now they get to the gate of the Spread Creek campsite. Sorry, he like hurries to get out of the car. He hurries out, and he's like, "Okay, thank you. Like you could drop me off here." She's like, "Well, I can take you to like where it's at." He's like, "No, just right here." And he starts like opening the door, and she's like, "Oh, like." Basically she makes a joke. She's like, "Oh, you just don't want your girlfriend to see you getting dropped off by a girl or something like that." And he's just, no. He's like, I'll get dropped off here. Like I'm good. So he gets dropped off, right? He gets off, and he's left at the gate. Now, I'll talk a little bit more about the situation, but we're gonna keep going. On August 30th, so this is the day after the hitchhike. Yeah. After he was picked up by that lady.
Yeah.
August 30th, Gabby's mom received a text from Gabby's phone. It stated, "Can you help Stan? I just keep getting his voicemails and missed calls. My phone doesn't even ring. There is no service." This stood out to Gabby's mom. You know why?
Why?
Because Stan is Gabby's grandpa. And she never referred him as Stan. She always called him grandpa. So now Gabby's mom is like, okay, why would she say Stan? But then she's like thinking, okay, maybe she's driving and
what
Brian.
What was his username on their phone?
Who's?
Her grandpa's.
No, I don't know. No. She was texting. So her grandpa was trying to reach Gabby.
Yeah, but I'm saying because imagine if it's Stan keeps calling her and Gabby had her grandpa as Stan. No. And he didn't know.
So Brian knows her
Stan
grandpa.
okay.
Brian knows her grandpa. So he knows that his name is Stan. So I'm assuming, you're not going to be like, "Can you tell grandpa texting my phone?" You're not going to say, "Can you tell grandpa?" You'd be like, "Tell my grandpa's name, Jesus, to, answer the phone," or something like that, If you're texting and you're trying to not text, like, text like me. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like you're texting you're texting like as yourself. Yeah. You're not texting as me. So obviously you're going to be like, "Oh, can you tell Jesus or can you tell Stan?" You know what I mean? It's like, it was just odd, right? And I mean, it's not out of the ordinary because if you were texting on my phone, you probably would say, like, you wouldn't say grandpa. Would you say grandpa or would you say his actual name?
Well, me, if I was, for your grandpa, yeah, I'll say his name.
Yeah. So she was like, okay, it didn't stand out too much because then maybe she's driving and she probably told him to text the
But
mom.
they're not together anymore.
What?
They're not together anymore.
No. Can you help Stan? I just keep getting voicemail.
Yeah, but he got dropped off by a hitchhiker, so he's not with her anymore.
The mom don't know that though.
I know, but I'm saying like that's for sure now.
Oh yeah.
It's ruled out. Yeah.
Yes. So, but we're in this now. So let's not think about the future yet. Let's think about this moment right now, so that we won't get confused. Because I'm gonna explain all the situations and the time frames and everything towards the end after the math, right? So this is this moment right now. She's receiving this text message, and he says Stan, or she says Stan, and so it catches her off guard because that's her grandpa and she refers him as grandpa. So she thought she probably is driving, and she asked Brian to text me that, and he just ended up saying Stan, right? Okay. So now, September 1st, mom texted Gabby. So now Gabby hasn't reached out to her mom. She hasn't heard from her mom in a while. So the mom goes, "Hey, how's it going? Going to bed. Wanted to say hi." No response. She kept texting her, every day. She looked through her social media every day, but there was nothing. She was trying to be a YouTuber and no posts are posting. Like, she just posted one video on YouTube and that was the last video she's posted. And she hasn't posted any pictures. She hasn't posted anything on her social media. It was really weird to the mom and it was starting to become concerning. So her last post that she posted on Instagram was August 25th. And that was the last time that she FaceTimed her daughter. That was 2 days before she disappeared. So mom was like, she was starting to get nervous and it was starting to be concerning, like I said. So she kept texting her throughout September 1st to September 7th. And there was no response, no text messages, nothing. So then the mom ended up reaching out to Gabby's dad. And she asked him, "Hey, have you heard from Gabby?" And he's like, "No, I haven't." This
That's
was
so sad.
already, yes. So this is already 10 days since the last contact. Since she has last contacted Gabby, since they last talked to each other. So now it's starting to get a little bit more concerning. So they started making calls, no answer. They started texting Brian, no answer, nothing, nobody was answering. So then the mom ended up texting even the ex. So the ex explained that, because this was in the documentary, the ex explained that the mom texted him. Right? I mean, Gabby's mom texted him,
How did
the
she know to
ex.
text him?
I'm assuming maybe she thought, okay, maybe Gabby was looking for a way out or something. I don't know. Maybe they were already close. I was a little bit like, I was questioning it too. Why would she, or how would she know to text Jackson, her ex? Because they're not together. So like I was a little bit, confused there too. So I'm not sure how or why. But she ended up texting the ex, Jackson, and Jackson did state on the day of August 27th, he did receive 2 calls from her at night. But he couldn't answer because he was busy at the time. So
August
he
27th was the
was the day that
11th.
she disappeared. So he did get 2 calls from her. This was like maybe after the situation that happened, I think in Whole Foods after then. So he was too busy, he didn't call back. I mean, no, sorry. He was too busy, he didn't answer. So he ended up calling back and there was no answer back. So it was just, that was the
Dang,
only
that
thing.
probably haunts him, huh?
Yeah, it was just really weird at the fact that, he calls back, she doesn't answer, but she calls twice before then, wanting to talk to him. Maybe she was trying to reach for help or something. I'm not sure, you know? Or what if it was Brian that was trying to call him? I don't know. But the fact that he got 2 calls from Gabby that day that she disappeared is crazy to me. So yeah, so that's the thing that he ended up telling Gabby's mom. Okay? And then he told him the situation that happened that day that she was left alone in the hotel and she called him. So now, yeah, Gabby's mom is getting a little concerned. Nikki's getting a little concerned. September 9th is when she ended up texting the dad asking him if he's heard from Gabby. So he says no. And that's when she contacts the ex as well. So the next day, on September 10th, the mom tries to text Roberta, which is Brian's mother. And the first text, she ends up sending like, "Hey, have you seen the kids? I mean, have you heard from the kids? I haven't heard from them. I haven't heard from Gabby in a while. Like, I just want to know, if you've heard from Brian or anything." So the text went through blue. And this is important. The text went through, so it delivered. You know how on iPhones it delivers blue? Okay. But there was no response. But it was delivered. The second text message, she ends up sending another text like, "Oh, like, I hope I have the right number." That text is green. So usually, like, if you don't have an iPhone, but usually if a text message sends green and it's an iPhone, it's either because they either blocked you or their phone's off and they have no service. So the messages can't be delivered, right? So that was a little suspicious because why were the text message sent before it was delivered, it was blue, and then now it's green, the second text message. So she's thinking, oh, she blocked me, right? So that message was not delivered and it was not sent. So no messages were received. I mean, were responded. Nobody responded. So now the dad tried to reach Brian's dad or Brian's parents as well. And these text messages ended up sending blue. So it ended up delivering, but there was never a response. He ended up texting another text message and he was like, hey, I'm going to call the police because now it's getting serious. And no response from Brian's parents. So now they're like, why are they not replying to us? Like, what if the kids are missing? What's going on? But now it's like, this is weird. Why wouldn't they respond if they didn't know what was going on? Does that make sense? So it was just really suspicious. So by September 11th, now Gabby's mom was able to report Gabby missing. So it was really hard for her to report Gabby missing throughout the time, but she tried, but it was because she was an adult. So in order for you to report an adult missing, it has to take, I don't know, the system is a little bit weird because if it's a kid, it takes 24 hours. But if it's an adult, they can do whatever they want. You know, they can go and live somewhere else. They don't have to tell the parents. So that's where Gabby's mom was a little bit I was having trouble with that. So they weren't even listening to her. They weren't believing her that she ran away or that she was missing and stuff like that. So they're like, she's an adult, like she can do whatever she wants. So it was really hard, but eventually by the 11th of September, she was able to report her missing. She wasn't able to report her in Wyoming because it had to be in the state that she lived in. Well, Gabby lived in. So she had to report her in Florida. So it was like this whole situation. It was just a mess. So now that night, the officers in Northport, Florida. So this is where Gabby was living with Brian's parents. So they ended up going to Laundrie's home and they didn't want to talk. They opened the door and as soon as they started talking, like the officer was like, hey, like, have you heard from Gabrielle and Brian? And they're like, we don't want to speak. You can talk to our lawyer. So now the cops like, what the heck? They aren't even surprised because there's a body cam that came out of the cops going to their house, and they're like, "Oh, well, you don't want to like say anything, like the parents of Gabby haven't heard from them. Like, we just want to know if you've heard anything." And they're like, "Well, Brian's here. Brian's at home." But we're not gonna say anything. You can have my lawyer's phone number. You can talk to him.
Northport Police Department. Yes. How you doing, sir? I apologize for bothering you. I have the detective on the phone.
I'm not talking to anybody right now.
You don't want to talk to us?
No.
Okay, she's on the phone. You don't want to talk to her now?
No.
Okay, when was the last time that you saw Brian and Gabriel?
Well, Brian is here.
Brian is here?
Yeah, and that's all I'm going to say.
And that's what you're saying?
Yeah, we have an attorney. They've been calling, I don't know, that's all I want to say. I don't know why so many attorneys are aware
okay.
they're calling, so I can give you his number.
Whose number? The attorney's number?
Yeah.
Okay, I would like that, please, so I can give it to the detective. Thank you. Thank you, I appreciate it. And just to let the detective know, is Gabriel here? Or no?
No.
She's not here. Okay.
The fellow was here last night.
Yeah, okay, so is this her vehicle? Her van?
It's both of them.
It's both of them? Okay.
Bye.
All right, thank you. Appreciate it.
So now it's like, what the heck? Why do they have a lawyer? The van is in the driveway. So now the cop goes, hey, who's the van? Who did it belong to? Who does it belong to?
He left with the hitchhiker.
No, he left with the van, with their van. Well, Gabby's van.
What's up with the hitchhiker then?
I told you he dropped him off. She dropped him off.
Where?
I never seen him. I told you at the gate of.
No, wait, hold on. Where did the hitchhiker pick him up? Where the van was with Gabby.
No. So I said he was walking down like in the street. He hitchhiked. The lady picked him up. She dropped him off because he wanted to go to Jackson, but he dropped him off in the what was it, the a campsite. I forgot what it's called.
Is that where Gabby was?
We don't know yet. We're in this situation right now. I'll explain to you in a sec what happened and what went down. I'm gonna go back to that, and then I'll explain like what really happened. But so at that time, because he did state, and I forgot to mention this, but he did state to the hitchhiker, my fiance is in the van. She is doing our social media for our YouTube channel. So he did state that she was in the van, but he never stated where the van was. But supposedly it was where he was dropped off, right? Okay. So moving forward, right? Now he's home, and the parents are not saying anything. The cops end up seeing the van in the driveway, and they're like, they already looked up the driver, the plate, the license plate, and it came back to Gabby Petito, to under her name. And he asks the parents, the cop asks the parents, hey, who does the van belong to? And then they were like, the dad's like, oh, it's their van, meaning like it was for both of them. And so the cop is like, okay. So he goes back. He starts talking to detective. It's Detective Barry. And he's like, well, they don't want to talk to me. And they don't want to talk to you. They said that they have a lawyer. And the van belonged to them both. But when I looked at the license plate, it just came under Gabby. So now the detective is like, what the heck? That's suspicious. That's weird. We got to do something. So now they start talking to another officer, and the officer is like, okay, let me go talk to them. So he tries to go talk to them again, another officer. This is not the first officer that went up to them the first time. This is another officer that was there. And he goes and tries to go talk to the parents, to Brian's parents. And the parents like, we told you we don't want to talk. You have my lawyer's number. Call him. And he's like, your lawyer's not going to answer at this time. It's like 11 p.m. They're not going to answer. So he's like, can you give us any information that we can give to Gabby's parents so that they won't stop being concerned? Because this is, this involves their kids too, or their kid too. And then the dad's like, I'm not going to tell you anything. Brian's here. Like, that's all that I'm going to say. And that's it. And so the officer is like, that's it? That's all you're going to tell me? He's like, yeah, you can call my lawyer tomorrow if you want. So now he's like, okay, well, just to let you know, we have to take the van because that van does not belong to Brian. It belongs to Gabby Petito. So we have to take the van. And he's like, okay. He's like, that's fine. He's like, yeah, that's fine. And so they ended up calling a tow truck, and they ended up towing the van. Now, there's something that I do want to add, because I saw this, like the interview that I was telling you about with this couple, the Squeeze, what was a podcast called The Squeeze or something like that. Gabby's mom, Nikki, she talks about like the situation, like I said in the first part 1. And she said that when they took the van, they didn't have the mattress anymore. It was all cleaned up. So there was no evidence in the van.
They didn't have that mattress anymore? So
the mattress was never found. So it seems like Brian hit them,
strangled
did something
her on the bed.
I don't know, but did something with the mattress, because the mattress was gone and the whole van was cleaned up already. So they didn't have anything to go off on in the van. So they weren't able to track anything there. So that was one thing I did want to add. When they took the van, they did investigate it, and there was nothing in there, not even the mattress, and the mattress was never found to this day. Okay, so now everybody's getting concerned. Now the biological dad, flew to Florida, because now he's trying to get on the news, trying to get people to trying to get it out there.
Awareness.
Yes. So, and the mom, Nikki, ended up posting, her picture all over Facebook. Now, this is a time when it blew up. Everybody was talking about it. I even saw it. I was following along with the videos and stuff like that on TikTok. It was
How long
just
ago did it happen?
this was in 2021.
Mm-hmm.
So it was just a big, like, everybody was talking about it. And everybody wanted to know where Gabby was and why Brian was home and all this stuff, right? So this whole situation was going on live and everybody was following it. And people will come out like, oh, like, you know, what happened to Gabby, and they will talk about the story. And that's important. And I'll tell you why in a sec. But Rose, her best friend, remember the one that Brian met, she ended up feeling like it was really weird, like something she knew that he did something to her because of the times, you know, that she had with Gabby and all the moments that, you know, they had and all the fights. She's seen Gabby so upset because of him. She's seen Gabby like crying hysterically because of him. So she knows something went down and he did something to her. That's what she says, at least, right? So now on September 13th, Jim, which is the stepdad, went to Wyoming, the stepdad of Gabby. He ended up going to Wyoming to help law enforcement find her. Now, they ended up sailing helicopters all over Grand Teton National Park because that was the last time that Gabby's mom spoke to her in that area, that she received a text message, right? And so that was the last time that they contacted her, and they, you know, they're thinking that maybe she was just left there. Now FBI is being brought to Jackson, Wyoming. So now FBI is involved. And now the family told them, okay, we need to search Yellowstone National Park and the Grand Teton National Park, which is crazy because Yellowstone is on the left side of Wyoming. Like if you're seeing it from this side, from the other side is like over here. But from this side, it's on the left side of Wyoming at the very, very top, right? That's where Yellowstone is at. The Grand Teton is a little bit lower. From Grand Teton and Yellowstone, it's about 20,000 square feet of miles.
Dang.
So it's a lot to look through for the cops and FBI to investigate or to try to, you know, find
20,000?
20,000 square miles.
Oh, miles. Okay.
Yeah.
Feet, I was like...
No. 20,000 square miles.
Okay, that's a lot.
Yes. So yeah, so it's a big amount of area that they have to look through.
Mm-hmm.
So the last ping of Gabby's phone was in Spread Creek Campground. So that's near, I believe, Yellowstone, right? Not Yellowstone, I'm sorry, Grand Teton. That's near there. So now they're like, okay, so now we kind of have like a little bit of an idea of where she was the last moment. But the problem is that in that area is very rugged. So one side has big plains with a lot of bushes and no roads and no trails. So really shouldn't be anybody camping there. On the other side is the camping side, and it's a very heavy wooded and mountainous and steep canyons. So it's very rugged. So there's just so much going on in that area, and having to look through all of that, they're going to have to need a lot of stuff, right? So they started searching on foot, side by side, horses, drones, etc. So they tried everything to search for Gabby. Everyone started protesting. Everyone started like coming out and trying to find Gabby. It was all over social media, like I said. It was all over the news, and nothing was being found. The Laundrie's family, they just kept living their life like nothing. They supposedly, there's one video that I did see that Brian's mom, Roberta, was like planting through this whole time. She was just in her garden planting every single day. So people were speculating, there's something that I do want to say, that people were probably speculating that they were hiding Brian or something. I don't know. But every day she was planting and just in her little garden.
She was trying to de-stress as much as she could, probably.
Maybe. But either way, it was just weird. People were outside of their house asking them, why is Brian home? Where's Gabby? And they would not talk, like I said. And also, there's something that a lot of people found weird is throughout that time, September 6th to September 8th, the whole family, the Laundrie family, like his sister, his mom, his dad, Brian, the husband of the sister, the sister's kids, they all went camping. Like, why? Why are you going camping in this time and Brian is with you guys and nothing that's going on? Like, what you're acting like
trying to get away from everything.
Yeah, but it's like that was supposed to be their future in-law, daughter-in-law.
I don't think they liked her very much.
That's so sad. And the thing is that even like Gabby was very close, from what I heard from the mom, her interview, she was very close to the sister's kids. She would draw them pictures, and the daughters were even do the same thing to her, and then they would even ask for Gabby. So it's like, why would you do that? She lived with you guys, and you're over here going camping while she's missing. It was just crazy to me. I don't know. But anyways, continue. So the news reporters ended up going to Cassie's house, which Cassie is the sister of Brian. They ended up going to her house because they just wanted answers. Everybody just wanted answers. So she stated that she didn't know anything. She stated that she was losing her parents, losing her brother, losing her sister-in-law, that the parents weren't even talking to them. So the sister ended up coming out with her husband, and she stated that to the reporter. The parents were not talking to the sister and the husband anymore. And they asked her why. And she's like, I don't know. If I knew, I would say. But I don't know. And so they're like, okay, well, you went camping. What happened there? Did y'all talk about it? And they're like, no, the kids were there. We did not talk about anything. They ended up leaving early. So they ended up leaving, her husband, and the kids ended up leaving early. So they only stayed not even a full day, for like a few hours, 6 hours, 8 hours, something like that. And so she was like, so we didn't even talk about it. They ended up staying, the mom, the dad, and Brian ended up staying where they were at throughout the whole time. So the sister is supposedly making it seem like she don't know anything, whatever, right? September 17th, fast forward a few days later, the Laundrie's family reported Brian missing. So now Brian's missing. They said they haven't heard him in days. And what's crazy to me, if people were outside of their house all the time, how come you didn't? Well, supposedly they saw Brian leave. At that point, they weren't able to arrest Brian. They weren't able to have a warrant because they didn't have any evidence that he did something to Gabby. They don't even have a body yet. So they weren't able to do anything to Brian. So Brian was able to come and go. Brian was able to leave, right?
The detectives should have been on him, though.
Well, they were. Supposedly, they saw him leave. And supposedly, quote unquote, they saw him come back. But it wasn't him. It was his mom. And they thought that it was Brian. Because supposedly they looked the same.
They were eating too many donuts. I thought
that was weird.
They were eating too many donuts.
I don't know, but that was a little bit weird to me. And I was like, how the heck did you not catch that? And now he's missing. Now it's been a few days since they haven't heard from him.
Their job.
They ended up searching the house for the belongings of Brian because now he's missing. So now they're trying to find anything to locate him. So now they're able to do all that. The mom reported him missing? The mom reported him missing. The parents, at least. The parents reported him missing, so they were like, okay, can we gather like a few stuff from Brian so that we can find more evidence to why he's missing, what happened, and stuff like that, So the parents allowed them to go into the house and go into Brian's room. One thing that I do want to add on this topic, Nikki, which is Gabby's mom, stated in the interview that she had recently in the podcast, The Squeeze, She stated that she found out recently that when the detectives went, or the investigators went to go search Brian's room was cleared up.
What do you mean?
It was cleaned. Like, it was already packaged. Like, all his stuff was packaged in boxes. Like, it was cleaned out. Like, his room was just not how it was when he left. Does that make sense? Like they packaged his stuff. Like, if he was moving out. Does that make sense? So, if it was just really weird as to why, when he had just went missing, you just reported him missing, and now you're packaging his stuff in
Well, I
boxes.
mean,
like, if he's moving out.
In a way, you gotta keep in mind, how long was it that the investigation happened since the arrest to no, not the arrest. How long did it start since the huge investigation?
Of Gabby?
Yeah, till now.
So
Till then,
the investigation with Gabby was September 11th.
September 11th. That's when it started.
When she reported him missing.
And now, what about him?
He's reported missing on September 17th.
When did they go into his house? September 17th?
September 17th.
7 days after. 6 days after. Well, we had to keep in mind, too, they were engaged.
Who?
Gabby and Brian.
Uh-huh.
They were probably going to get married.
Yeah.
So he probably already had some things packaged because they were probably going to move out.
No.
And then on top of that, another theory of mine, these are all theories, allegedly, maybe Brian was getting kicked out by his parents because of all the media. Nah, there's a reason why.
So the first one, I'm going to debunk it. You know why? Because in the beginning, like I said, they had stated they didn't want to think about their marriage. They didn't want to think about getting a house. They didn't want to think about having babies. They just wanted to travel. They just bought the van and left. That was their plan. They didn't want to think about any of that. That was not in their plan at that moment. So they weren't moving out anytime soon. And now, what's it called? The second one, the parents, and I'm about to read you a letter as to why I don't think that's true. Why would they kick out Brian? They protected him so much. They had an attorney. They paid, you know how much they paid for this attorney? And I forgot to add that. About $15,000 they paid for this attorney back in Wyoming so that they can protect his butt. $15,000 they transferred.
Wire transfer.
Yeah, they transferred money to this attorney, $15,000 to save his butt. Why? You know, that's a little bit weird, but that's another reason why. I mean, no, it wasn't 50,000. I'm sorry, it was a little bit more. $25,000. They wire transferred $25,000 to this attorney so they can protect Brian from whatever situation he was in.
Still, it doesn't change the fact that
why would they want to kick him out for protecting him?
With a little bit later, I mean, bruh, like, go moving, you're moving. You know, like, you're done. Like,
no, the parents were not. They loved, especially the mom, like I said, how protective she was. She loved Brian way too much. And I'll tell you why. And I'm going to read this letter. So they ended up taking all the stuff from his room. His room was already cleared out. So they took out the boxes that was cleared out of his room. And they searched his stuff. In the stuff, they found this letter. This letter was written by Brian's mom, Roberta. It was named, the title was Burn After Reading. Okay? Clearly he didn't burn it. So, I'm about to read it just so that you can get an idea of the relationship between the mom and the son. Okay? The Roberta and Brian. So this is the letter. I just want you to remember I would always love you, and I know you will always love me. You are my boy, sorry. Nothing can make me stop loving you. Nothing.
Red flag right there.
Nothing will or could ever divide us. No matter what we do or where we go or what we say, we will always love each other. If you're in jail, I will bake a cake with a file in it. If you need to if you need to dispose of a body, I will show up with a shovel and a garbage bags. If you fly to the moon, I will be watching the skies for your re-entry. If you say you hate my guts, I will get new guts. Remember that love is a verb, not a noun. It's not a thing, it's not words, it's just actions. Watch people's actions to know if they love you, not their words. Therefore, I am certain that neither death nor life, nor angels nor the ruling spirits, nor things present, nor things to come, nor powers from above, nor powers from below, nothing in the entire created world can separate our love.
Cap.
Neither hostile powers, nor messengers of heaven, nor
Cap.
monarchs of earth, nothing here, nothing. I don't know what she said here, but nothing. The power is able to separate us. That was supposedly in Roman 8:38. Nothing can separate us, not hatred, not hunger, not homelessness, not threats, not even sin, not the thinkable or the unthinkable can get between us. Not time, not miles and miles and miles. So that's the letter that she wrote to Brian, and supposedly it was supposed to be burned, but he never burned it because it was titled Burn After Reading. So that was a little suspicious, especially the fact that what she said, if you need to dispose of a body, I will show up with a shovel and garbage bags. For what? Why would she have to say that?
Why would she have to make him a letter? It sounded like
Exactly.
he was being very. He was locked in his room. And he didn't want to talk to nobody. It's the guilt of.
I think, this is what I think. I think she wrote this letter for him to take with him when he went missing. Because when he went missing, and I'll get to it, but he left to supposedly go camping. So I'm assuming that she wrote this letter intending for him to take it with him, to read it, because she knew what was going to happen. Maybe he was going to go missing. Maybe this was a plan, and he was planning to do something to himself. And she sent him this. She wrote on this letter, and he was supposed to burn it. So she knew, or he knew, how much his mom loved him. I think that's what it was. So this letter was supposed to be, was intended to be burned before he did whatever he had to do.
Dang.
I think that was the plan. And I'll show you why. Why I think that's what it was. So now we're going to move on to Gabby's body being found. So the media shifted their attention to Brian missing. So now Gabby was still not found. And now everybody is like paying attention to Brian not missing, basically. So now they needed a body in order to arrest Brian. If Brian was found, they would be able to arrest Brian if Gabby's body was found. Does that make sense? So, because then, all the evidence will come out and everything like that. So they needed a body, but now Brian's not there. So now they can't even investigate Brian or
So
anything
they found
like that.
the body.
Hold on. So on September 18th, the public was now asking for help. So everybody was asking, okay, so if there's any details onto where Gabby is, or what happened that day, or if they saw Gabby, or if they saw Brian, can you come out and state what you saw or what happened, right? So there was another girl that came out. It was her and her boyfriend. They had picked up Brian. So this girl is named Miranda Baker. She posted this on TikTok. So on August 29th at Grand Teton National Park around 5:30 p.m. So this is before he was picked up from the last girl. Remember?
Mm-hmm.
The other girl before? So this girl said that she picked him up at 5:30 at Grand Teton National Park, asking for a ride to Jackson, Wyoming. So it's the same story. They were on their way there, so they were like, "Okay, yeah, get in. We'll drive you to Jackson." Before they even said or stated like, "Hey, we'll take you there," he was like insisting, "Oh, I'll pay you $200. I'll give you $200 to just give me a ride to Jackson." Already there, they felt a little bit weird, but they were like, "Okay, whatever. Maybe he's just desperate or whatever. I don't know." They just didn't question it.
Yeah.
So they didn't take the money, but they took him, right? They took him to Jackson, or they took him and they picked him up. He said that he had been camping for multiple days without his fiance, that his fiance was working on their social media page in the van,
Yeah.
right? In Grand Teton National Park. So the conversation continued, and in the conversation, the couple, what's her name? Miranda, the people that picked him up, the couple ended up stating that they were going to be staying in Jackson. He freaked out. He was like, "Oh, drop me off right here, right now. I don't take me further." So they were like, "Okay, but we agreed to take you to Jackson. Like, what's wrong?" He said, "No, just take me out. Just leave me here." So they pulled over, and they pulled over at the Jackson Dam. This was around 6:09 when he hurried out of the car, and they never saw him again, and they left. Supposedly, the girl was stating, the people that picked him up, they stated that he didn't look dirty, he didn't smell dirty, which seemed a little bit odd to her because if you're gonna be camping for multiple days, you at least need an odor. Like you probably just smell, you probably look dirty, like all muddy or whatever it is. So it felt a little bit odd to her that he stated that he was camping for multiple days, but did not smell and did not look dirty, right?
Mhm.
So that's one thing she did add. So detectives just needed to know where it last was. That was a way to find where the body was last, where the body is, basically. So they kept, trying to search. They kept, asking for people, the publics, to come out with something. These campers came out. They're vloggers. They're very known in the camper community, I guess. So they said that their friends were contacting them and saying like, "Hey, you were in Wyoming at the time that she went missing from August 27th to August 29th. You were there. So do you have any footage of like of anything? Like, did you see anything? Look through your footage." So they were like, "Okay, we'll look through our footage." So the girl, because it's a couple, the girl, she's the one that edits the video. She's the one that looks through the videos and stuff like that. And obviously, she didn't catch anything throughout the time that she was editing. But she's like, "Okay, let me look through our videos because I'm not 100% sure." She looked at the videos, and her heart stopped because the van was in their video. They passed the van. That was Gabby's van. And it was just stopped on the side, and there's a video of it as well.
We actually weren't able to find any sites, and we ended up driving back through, saw it again, but here it is on the left. So.
And I slowed it down so you can possibly see it a little bit better.
But kind of freaky for a late Saturday evening, but we just kind of had a brain fart. Oh my God, there's that van. So if anybody can help, I know the FBI is looking for all the help they can get on the case.
She said that there was nothing in there. It didn't seem like there was anybody in the van. It seemed very like nobody was in there. Like she thought, oh, they probably went camping, or they probably went to hike or something, and they just left their van there for a little bit. So they didn't think anything of it. But in that footage, it was around 6 to 6:30 p.m. when the van was spotted there, just sitting there. So the detectives went to the spot that, where they last saw that van, those campers. They went to the spot. And that was the Spread Creek area. So that was where he wanted to get dropped off.
He wanted to
Remember?
get dropped at Spread Creek.
Yeah. So at 6:45. So first he wanted to get dropped at Jackson, Jackson, the city. And then later on, she was like, well, I'm not going there. Remember that lady at 6:45? She's like, well, I'm not going there. And he was like, okay, well, can you just drop me off at Spread Creek? So that's where they last spotted the van. That was where the van was when the campers. Yeah, when they drove by. Okay. That was September 18th when they found that footage.
He wanted to go back and get the van.
Wait a minute. I'll tell you. I'm going to explain everything. I'm going to go back in order and we're going to, basically talk about everything from time to time. Okay. On September 19th, Gabby's body was found lying on her side, wrapped in her sweater, in front of a little small burnt fire. It was already burnt out. And her boots were next to her. And it appeared to investigators that the crime scene had been staged. So she was put there. And they ended up ruling her death as a homicide because her cause of death was blunt force trauma and manual strangulation. So either she got hit in the head and she was then strangled. That makes sense? So that was her cause of death. Now, the way that they found or the investigators or they determined that was her body was the stepdad had to go and, because you know how he was in Wyoming, had to go and basically determine that was her. And as soon as they showed him a picture, because they were like, we possibly found Gabby's body. And he's like, my heart stopped. My heart sank. And so they were like, he was like, how do you know? And so then he was like, oh, well, the cop was like, well, we'll show you this picture. And they ended up showing the picture to basically determine that was her. And he just started crying. And he's like, yeah, that's her. Because in the documentary, he states that he saw her hair like this and her little beanie. And she was lying like this. And he just saw her hair and he knew that was her. So he made the phone call to the other parents and told them that they found Gabby's body and that she was determined dead. So that was the day that her body was found, was the 19th of September. They were all just devastated at the fact that why and how, like they just didn't know why or how she was dead. And now their eyes are turned to Brian. Now, where's Brian? We have questions. What is going on? On August 27th, 8:30 p.m., the detectives believed that she was still alive, which I think that it doesn't make sense because there's a text message to the mom at 7:15 and it's really weird. But the reason why they think that she was still alive at 8:30 p.m. that day was because there was files being moved on her computer. The same movement that she does whenever she goes to edit and stuff like that. So it wasn't an odd movement. It was like that was her routine. You know what I mean? So they believe that she was still alive by then. But it's like the text messages, it tells you the time at 7:15. Why would Gabby state something like that to her mom with the text message? But I don't know. But supposedly the detective said that she was still alive by 8:30. 8:30 was the last time that they found movement on her computer. So the next day, no indication showed that she was alive. So the next day, on the 28th of August, there was nothing showing that she was still alive. So for sure, she had died on August 27th. On the day of August 27th, it seemed like, and it was determined that Brian had killed her, moved her body to where it was found. So now we're going to talk about the aftermath of the findings and everything like that. So we're going to start on August 28th. Brian took random pictures in the morning of like bones of dead animals and flowers. Weird. But anyways, August 29th, he called his mom, Roberta, at 1:20 p.m. That phone call lasted 55 minutes. Why were they talking that long? Who knows? Well, now we know, actually. But it's determined that during that call, that's when the father contacted the attorney. They continued their back and forth calls up until 3:30 p.m. that day. So after 3:30 p.m., they didn't contact each other anymore. At this time, text messages were being sent to Gabby's phone from Brian's phone. This is August 29th. So Gabby's already dead. So Brian has Gabby's phone and texting himself. And then texting himself back. So he's going back and forth
Trying
with
to
two
cover
phones.
it up.
Mm-hmm. So at this time, he's, hitchhiking. And the text messages, so you remember the times that he's hitchhiking with the ladies? I mean, the couple and then that lady. So during that time, there was no text messages being sent back. So Brian texted Gabby, quote unquote, Gabby's phone at least. Brian texted Gabby's phone throughout the time that he was hitchhiking. But no text messages, or it was never read until he got to the van. So obviously we know that he was trying to cover himself up, right?
With the hitchhiking.
No, with
No,
the text messages.
while he was hitchhiking, he was sending himself text.
No, yeah. Right. So while he was hitchhiking, he was sending him
like 5:30 to.
So he didn't have Gabby's phone. He had it. It was still in the van. He had his phone, but he was trying to text Gabby if he was, because in the text message he was like, oh, like I'm hitchhiking. I'll be there in a bit. Blah blah blah. Like those were the text messages that he was sending to Gabby.
I think those files were moved by Brian because he's trying to imitate everything. So
Maybe.
he was gonna start creating the YouTube videos as if nothing happened to Gabby.
But then how he so because Gabby was doing all of this. That was Gabby's routine. How would he know how to do all of that?
Because you know how to do all of the things I know how to do.
Yeah, because you taught me.
What about
Gabby did not
Brian?
teach him because
know?
You know why? Because in the videos it came out. She was like, well, if you could help me edit, I wouldn't be stressed out. She states that in videos. So she's like, if you knew how to edit and you could help me out. So like it obviously shows Brian did not know how to do.
So what happens? What happens after we argue about something like that?
What do you mean?
Like for instance, if I argue to you about not doing something, then we come to an agreement.
Yeah,
that
me and you would do
help
that.
Me
and you would do that. But then, no. Well, at least Brian, no.
But still,
because you know why?
That's the only thing that would make sense.
No, but Brian didn't like her vlogging.
I know, but he had to make it like believable.
I don't know. I don't.
Still, like,
to me,
you
personally,
can't just have all that. I'm sure they didn't have all anger throughout that whole road trip. So there was probably times of peace where they would talk about it. He's like, yeah, I'll help you. How do you do it? This. While she was driving, he was doing all the little foul things. I'm sure.
No.
He can't
I don't believe that. You know why?
That's what I
because of the videos, and I'll show you the videos after.
But
the videos that she would be like, well, if you would help me. And then also when he would get annoyed at the fact that she's recording, and he would be like, why are you recording at night? And, we shouldn't be doing that. We should be going to sleep. Like, stuff like that. It's like, I don't think he would be messing with the files at 8:30 because he didn't even want her to record at late at night. Why would he be doing that?
Because he's trying to cover it up.
No.
He got home. He got to the van. The message is delivered, or the messages were then received. So yeah,
I would understand.
He wanted to continue. He was like, all right, but I have to do everything as if we were doing it.
So one thing is that the files would be moved really weird if he would go. Like, it wouldn't be the same routine or the same pattern as when Gabby was doing it. It would be a little bit different, right? The pattern wouldn't be the same. But supposedly the pattern was very similar to, the previous times when she would be moving the files and stuff like that. So No, I don't. I honestly do not believe that. And I don't think he knew any of it because he just didn't seem very interested in what she was doing.
So you think Gabby sent those moved those files at 8:30?
It's hard to believe but not believe, if that makes sense. Like, I don't think she was alive at that time, but then how was those files moved at that time? I don't know. I don't know. I can't say yes, I can't say no, so I'm not sure, but I just don't believe it, but
What
then
if the
I also do,
detective
and then
got the date wrong?
I
It was the day before. I don't believe it.
I don't know. But around 6 to 6:30 is when the minivan was spotted at that spot and nobody was in it. So it's just hard. August 29th is when he was hitchhiking. This was around 7 o'clock, around 7:30 when he got back to the van. So when the text messages were being sent back to Brian's phone from Gabby's phone. Does that make sense? Is there any confusion? Because I know I went back and forth. Okay.
He came back in. That's when the message is sent.
Yeah, so that was
Maybe
August.
she was on airplane mode, right?
What?
She was on airplane mode.
She was already dead then at that time.
7:30.
On August 29th, she was already dead.
Oh, that's when the
text messages between him and Gabby.
sent. That's
Yeah.
when they sent.
Remember? So August 29th is when he hitchhiked. By that time, Gabby was already dead. Gabby died on August 27th. But the last
he
known,
hitchhiked 28th.
the 29th.
29th.
Mhm.
Dang.
He hitchhiked on the 29th with those two people.
Oh, you confused me then.
Yeah, that's what I was saying.
It's
Yeah,
hella
I was going back
confusing.
and forth. So August 29th is when he hitchhiked, and I know I stated that in the beginning, but I got confused because for some reason August 29th and August 27th is similar to me in my head. But August 29th is when he hitchhiked. That's when he had a conversation with his mom around 1:20. That was 55 minutes. They ended up getting an attorney, and he was trying to text himself from his phone to Gabby's phone and text himself back. But the text messages were not being read or responding until he got to the van. This was August 29th. And that was maybe around like 7 o'clock.
That was when he was hitchhiking.
Because the last person that picked him up was at 6:30 to 6:45, right? So he could have gotten back like at 7:30. So that was the time that he responded himself back. August 30th, he ended up driving back to Florida from Wyoming. So we see a video of him, of the van, basically driving on the road and driving back to Florida, down south. So this is the text message. This is when the text message was sent to Gabby's mom. Remember that text message where it said about the grandpa? That's when the message was sent on August 30th. Remember?
Oh.
Okay. So Gabby was already dead then. But he was driving back, and that's when
You
he
confused the heck out of me.
So
now I get it.
Yeah.
So 27th was the last file transferred. The 27th is when she died.
Yes.
The 28th, I guess he was doing whatever. The 29th. When was the pictures?
28th.
28th was the pictures. Oh yeah. So he was like in shock, I bet.
And
then 29th he hitchhiked, and then the messages were delivered.
From Gabby's phone to Brian.
Yeah,
and that's when they got the attorney.
Yeah.
And then on the 30th, he was driving back to Florida. And that's when the day that the text message was sent to Gabby's mom, talking about the grandpa. Okay. So he ended up stopping at multiple gas stations throughout the time that he was driving back to Florida from Wyoming. He used Gabby's debit card to pay for the gas. Also transferred money from Gabby's bank, her bank account, to Brian's bank account. He transferred $700 from her account. And the memo, you know how you can add a memo to the transfer? I mean to the Zelle. It said, "Goodbye, Brian. I'll never ask you anything again." So he's obviously trying to to kind of
Cover it up.
cover his tracks up, making it seem like Gabby stated that she didn't want to be with him anymore and she was leaving him. And she let him take the van. Because remember that text message between the mom? That's where I think that she wasn't alive at 8:30. Because she sent that text message at 7:15, supposedly. Now maybe the time was off or wrong, and those text messages were a little bit later. But the text message did state that she would pay Brian for the van. Remember? And that she would be better off as a solo vlogger, solo van lifer. So supposedly Gabby sent those $700 to Brian, which now we obviously know it was Brian. And the message was said, "Goodbye, Brian. I will never ask you anything again." Now this
Can we
obviously
catch up on the message for the solo vlogger? What time did that happen? The 27th.
I told you
What
7:15.
time? At
But
7:15, she sent that message.
Yes, but you didn't hear what I said.
I was processing it.
Okay, so at 7:15, she sent the message supposedly. That's what the mom stated, that it was at 7:15.
The solo
vlogger, the
then buying
last
the
message
van.
from, yes.
7:15.
That was 7:15, right? But supposedly she was still alive at 8:30. But that just, to me, just makes me, I just don't understand that, because why would Gabby say that? And then now there's money being transferred from Gabby's
Yeah, but like
account
that's
to
like way
Brian,
after. We
which
already
we
know.
obviously know that that's a Brian,
Yeah.
right? So he's trying to cover his tracks. So this made him now a wanted person. So now they found all of that, because now they found Gabby's body. They're looking through her phone. They found all this stuff. They found all this information.
They're looking through her phone.
Yeah, because her phone was there. They ended up
with her body.
I believe it might have been in the van. I'm not 100% sure
It
where
had
they
to
find
be in the van.
where they found the phone. But they did retrieve her phone, and they ended up finding all those things. So now, now he's known as a wanted person. He's no longer a missing person anymore, because at this time he's still missing. So this is September 23rd when they now filed a arrest warrant. So now everybody was looking for Brian. They were like, we better find Brian. Now he's a wanted person. Like, we need him because he's about to get arrested. So even Doug the bounty hunter, I don't know if you know who that is, but basically he's this big known person. Supposedly he's very controversial. It's just weird, but whatever. He is very known. So the fact that he was even looking for Brian, it just shows how big this was in the news, right? So many people kept suspecting that they had seen him. They would even post things on TikTok like, "Oh my God, like this looks like Brian," things like that. So they were all like, everybody was in the lookout. Everybody was wanting to find Brian. So they started to retrace Brian's steps. So on September 14th, we're going back. On September 14th, this was 3 days before the parents reported him missing. So someone had left their car in, this is so hard to say, but it's basically a environmental park in Florida. It's Mayakachi Creek, something like that. I'm sorry, but it was an environmental park in Florida where they lived, in North Park, and somebody had left their car there for a very long time. They reported a car being there for a very long time. This was 3 days before the parents had reported him missing, right? And the Laundries, obviously it was found that it was a Laundrie's car, and it was ticketed, and the Laundries, all they did was just pick up the car.
Laundries?
Which is Brian's family's last name. The Laundries. So they ended up picking the car and they took the car, right? This was the place that the parents said that it was the known place of where he would love to go hiking. So this was his park. Like he loved to go hiking there and camping there and stuff like that. He supposedly had told his parents that he was gonna go hiking. So they were like, okay, this is not like unusual. Like he usually does this. He'll go camping and for a few days and then he'll come back. So usually this is a thing that he does all the time. So it wasn't odd for them. So they were like, okay, whatever. He wanted to go out and camp to relieve the steam from the pressure of people of the crowd outside of his house. So obviously they said that it was getting to his head, all those people. So he packed a backpack with equipment, with camping equipment. He packed his tent, he packed food, and he was off, right? He went camping. Supposedly, they believed that he was going to return. On September 18th, they began searching for Brian. So he was reported missing on September 17th. And now September 18th, they began the search.
So soon?
Yeah,
Wasn't
because
it hard to get somebody to get searched?
so yes. But the thing with that is that the car was there. So they were like, okay, well, what's going on? And then also the suspicion with Gabby, they obviously were okay. They're like, okay, well, we gotta find him because now Gabby's body is not found yet, but Gabby's body is still missing. So we gotta look for him because this obviously is a situation that's odd. So they went and searched for Brian because at that time it's a long story, but whatever. So they began the search the next day. Now, the search for him was about 20,000 acres. So it was a really big, park. So they had to search the whole area. Every part of the park was searched, supposedly. This park was flooded because it had rained a good bit throughout those days that he was gone. It had rained and the park was flooded. So the water went up to here, to their chest. So that's how bad it was. So in order to search that area, it was going to take a lot and it was going to take a lot of time. The park was also closed for that reason. Not for it to find Brian, but because it was flooded. So it was nobody could even enter. So the park was closed. So they ended up bringing dogs, but the dogs were being attacked from alligators. So they ended up taking the dogs out. They were like, okay, we're not gonna, include any dogs in this search. It was weeks of rain and they could not find Brian. They could not find Brian. They searched for weeks and weeks. Well, they searched for weeks. There was like 3 weeks that they searched. On October 20th, this was already a month later, right? 37 days after Brian was missing, the park was finally open to the public. And the detectives were informed that the Laundries were gonna go and search and locate Brian, to locate Brian. So they were like, okay, that's fine. You guys go. They ended up going at 7 a.m. in the morning. About an hour in, the dad found the waterproof bag that belonged to Brian. How did the detectives not find that? Well, maybe it was flooded, but I don't think it was flooded throughout that whole entire time for 3 weeks.
I mean, maybe they know the route that Brian takes, though.
They did. They knew the route that Brian the route that Brian takes.
They should have told that
They
to
know.
the detectives, though.
I don't know. I don't know what happened there and what the communication, if it wasn't good or what, but an hour in, when they were in there, the dad found the waterproof bag. The detective didn't find nothing. Nothing. Not zero. Zero things. 45 minutes after, Brian's remains were located. So his remains were a mile away from the car where it was parked. How did the detectives miss that? It was a mile away. It wasn't that far. And supposedly they searched the whole park.
With dogs and drones.
Yeah. So they missed that. And the dad the parents found the body an hour and 45 minutes in their search. But the detectives were searching for weeks. But anyways, everything was still there. but his body was decomposed down to the bone.
Huh?
Yes. So the one thing people were like, how could it be? Because it was already been a month since he was been missing, right? 37 days when they found him. But it's like how is he now decomposed to the bone? So a lot of people were like kind of questioning it. So Gabby's mom, Nikki, when she came out of the podcast, the squeeze, she did state that situation, and she was like, well, the thing is that it was really hot and it was very humid and there was animals. There was just a bunch of things. So obviously his body was going to be decomposed faster than what a usual body would decompose. It made sense to why.
But it was Brian's.
It was Brian's. It was
They
found that it was
confirmed it?
Brian. They confirmed it. So it was Brian's body.
Where's that boy in Bahamas?
Huh?
Where's that boy is in the Bahamas?
So a lot of people are speculating or thinking that he's still alive. But Gabby's mom did come out and state that
Imagine if I scared one of them.
But Gabby's mom did state, and she was like, yeah, no, he's not alive. She's like, people just, it's just so sad that people keep bringing him up or keep thinking that he's alive, but he's not. Like, those remains were his, and they were found. So they found the body. Cause of death was suicide by a gunshot wound to the head. The mom did state also in the podcast that she doesn't believe that he committed suicide. She thinks that the dad did it. That's what she thinks. Because there's this whole situation and just this whole thing. She just doesn't believe that he committed suicide. She don't think that he did it to himself. I don't know, but it wasn't because he didn't. She doesn't think that he shot him because he was mad at him. She thinks that the dad did that was to try,
make it easier on him.
Make it easier for Brian. So she thinks that Brian either asked to, for him to do that. Maybe he couldn't do it, or I don't know. But that's her opinion. That's her belief. Obviously, we don't know. It was ruled suicide. Allegedly. It was alleged, so it's not. We don't know if it's true, but that's her opinion, right? But it was ruled as a suicide, and it was by a gunshot wound to the head, right? Inside the waterproof bag, that they found of Brian's, were pictures of Brian and Gabby, and I mean, maybe he was just very, I guess he didn't believe what he did or he felt guilty. I don't know. But he had pictures of him and Gabby in there. There was also a notebook that was found in the waterproof bag. Basically, there was a bunch of letters that he wrote to his family saying that he loved them and that he was sorry and all this stuff, right? There was a story in there that led up to the death of Gabby Petito. So he explains his side of the story and what happened that day that she died. I'm going to read you the confession real quick. So page 1. Gabby, I wish I was right at your side. I wish I could be talking to you right now. I'd be going through every memory we made, getting even more excited for the future, but we've lost our future. I can't live without you. I've lost every day we could have spent together. I would never get to play with again. Never go hiking with TJ. I love you more than anything. I can't bear to look at our photos, to recall great times, because it is why I cannot go on. When I close my eyes, I will think of laying on the roof of the van, falling asleep in the sight of, and it's illegible, at Crystal Geyser. I will always love you. If you were reading Gabby's journal, looking at photos from our life together, flipping through old cards, you wouldn't want to live a day without her. Knowing that every day you'll wake up without her, you wouldn't want to wake up. I'm sorry to everyone this will affect. Gabby was the love of my life, but I know, and illegible, by many, I'm so very sorry to her family because I love them. I consider her younger siblings my best friends. I am sorry to my family. This is a shock to them as well as a terrible grief. They loved as much, if not more, than me. A new daughter to my mother, an aunt to my nephews. Please do not make this harder for them. This illegible as an unexpected tragedy. Rushing back to our car, trying to cross the stream of illegible before it got too dark to see, too cold. I hear a splash and a scream I could hardly see. I couldn't find her for a moment. Shouted her name. I found her breathing, and this is illegible, grasping my, and two lines were smudged to read, so you can't read this part. But grasping my, and then it jumps to the blazing hot national parks in Utah. The temperature had dropped to freezing. She was soaking wet. I carried her as far as I could down the stream towards the car, stumbling, exhausted, in shock when my, and this was illegible, and knew I couldn't safely carry her. I started a fire and spooned her as close to the heat. She was so thin, had already been freezing too long. I couldn't at the time realize that I should have started a fire first, but I wanted her out of the cold back to the car. From where I started the fire, I had no idea how far the car might be. Only knew it was across the creek. When I pulled Gabby out of the water, she couldn't tell me what hurt. She had a small lump on her forehead that eventually got larger. Her feet hurt, her wrists hurt, but she was freezing, shaking violently. While carrying her, she was continuously made sounds of pain. Laying next to her, she said little, lasping between violent shakes, grasping in pain, begging for an end to her pain. She would fall asleep, and I would shake her awake, fearing she wouldn't close her eyes if she had a concussion. She would wake in pain, start with her whole painful cycle again, while furious that I was the one waking her up. She wouldn't let me try to cross the street, thought that, like me, that the fire would go out in her sleep and she'd freeze. I don't know the extent of Gabby's injuries, only that she was in extreme pain. I ended her life. I thought it was merciful, that it is what she wanted. But I see now all the mistakes I made. I was in shock, but from the moment I decided to take her pain away, I couldn't go on without her. I rushed home to spend any time I had left with my family. I wanted to drive north and let James or TJ, which is her dad's, kill me, but I wouldn't want them to spend time in jail over my mistake, even though I'm sure they would have liked to. I amended my life not because of a fear of punishment, but rather because I cannot stand to live life another day without her. I've lost our whole future together, every moment we could have cherished. I'm sorry for everyone's loss. Please do not make life harder for my family. They lost a son and a daughter, the most beautiful girl in the world. Gabby, I'm sorry. I have killed myself by this creek in the hopes that animals may tear me apart, that it may make some of her family happy. Please pick up all of my things. Gabby hated people who littered. That was the letter that he wrote, and that was basically his confession.
That makes sense.
You think that that's what actually happened?
Keep reading. What do you think?
He's saying that he had to kill her because of her pain. Like, why couldn't you just call the cops? Why couldn't you just, I don't think that if I was in that situation, you would just be like, I'm just going to kill you just so that you won't be in pain anymore. I think, I'm assuming, you would call the ambulance, the cops, somebody, not immediately go, oh, let me just take her life away.
Well, is that all the evidence that you have?
Well, I mean, it doesn't match.
The only thing that I'm saying is it makes sense because they did park the van on the side. So they were hiking. And then what if they did something happened and she hit her head and she had and she couldn't talk or whatnot, and then he strangled her and he left her there by the fire because the detectives did say it seemed staged. So she was dragged to that area the fire was made, like he said. And he
But
was there. And then afterwards, keep in mind, he knew whatever he did, they were gonna blame him for it. So
obviously,
he wanted to cover his back. No matter what she said, this, that, he strangled her to put her out of her misery, and he thought that was best in his right mind. In his not right mind, I guess you could say. But in a way, I think, it low key makes sense. And then he was doing all the falsification of
okay.
the text messages because he was going to get accused anyways.
Why would he transfer $700 to his account?
She's dead.
He's gonna kill himself. What does he need it for?
He didn't know that he was going to kill himself.
What would he need that money for?
To get to the rest of the trip, or for whatever he
He
wants.
went back home. Why would you transfer $700 from her bank account when you knew that you felt guilty for the fact that you killed her?
It's not even just that.
And then
It's just,
also, let me tell you
she's
another
dead.
thing. It was staged, right?
Yeah.
Staged, it means that he either purposely put her like that.
Yeah.
So it doesn't mean that, because if he was trying to do all that, if trying to save her life, right, and he has the fire there, it wouldn't be nicely placed. Does that make sense?
If
It would
he
be
left
all
her.
over the place because he's trying to see, what am I gonna do? Okay, let me put her in the fire so she won't freeze to death. Okay, so like, let me do her this, let me do that, and it would just be all chaotic. But it was all perfectly placed. Why would he still send himself $700?
Because he has no money.
He could just use her debit card. He don't have to send money to himself. If he really wanted to use money to go pay, for the stuff, like he was using her card to pay for gas. That was known. But why send yourself $700 if you already using her debit card?
No cap.
Exactly.
He no, that's not why, because he what did he used to do to Gabby all the time?
What?
Oh, I hate
Manipulate?
myself. Oh,
Yes.
this, oh, that. For what? So he can receive sympathy.
Exactly.
So this letter was to receive sympathy
Either
from
that
the people.
or to make it seem like he did not do it, like it was not on purpose. But it was clearly on purpose.
Yeah, he wanted sympathy.
One, because of the whole situation that happened when they were stopped.
And he wanted to cover his family's back.
And then he also didn't want his family, because he didn't want to make it seem like his family, because they talked to an attorney.
Oh, yeah.
They talked to an attorney, so they obviously knew the steps and what to take. Okay? So he obviously did not want his family to get in trouble because his family was hiding him the whole entire time. But they can't get arrested. To this day, they cannot get arrested. Because they talked to that attorney, and that attorney told them exactly what to do. The parents are not able to get arrested, and Brian killed himself. So nobody is able to pay the price for Gabby's life.
They better get a good ass attorney for that.
They already did. They cannot. The Gabby's mom, Nikki, talked about this in the podcast. She's tried so many things. She's tried to figure out and talk to her attorney to see how they could get the Laundries arrested. They cannot get arrested.
Why?
Because at that time, he was not known as a suspect. He was just a missing person. So they could technically not know what actually happened. Technically. But it's just so weird. Because why would you call an attorney?
And this is ongoing?
I don't know if I don't think the actual, because they found her body, they cremated her, and now he's dead. So they can't really have they can't have a court. They can't, because he's not alive. The parents are not involved because they covered themselves up. So there's no way to have a court. He's dead. So, because the person that unalived her was him. Gabby's family started a Gabby Petito Foundation to prevent things like this to happen again. To prevent women or men being in a situation of like this, where they're in an abusive relationship and they can't get out. That's what they're doing. And then also they set a rule over there in Utah with the questions that I was telling you about to ask for people that they suspect that they're in an abusive
That's
relationship.
good. It's
So
very
now
good.
they are now doing that every time they are suspecting that. They have to do it. And if I find them, I can put them up. But it's about 10 questions. Basically, it's questions like, has he ever hit you? Has he ever, like, they'll do things like, has he ever tried to strangle you or like choke you? The word that they use is choke you. Has he ever tried to choke you? Has he ever put his hands on you? Questions like that. And so throughout those questions, you can kind of obviously see if they're lying or if they seem hesitant and stuff like that. So you can
With a
kind of get
little
a
bit of
gist.
psychology.
You can kind of get a gist of too if they are actually in that situation. So those are the type of questions that they have to ask. Which those were the questions that they were supposed to ask that day, but they never did. So even the mom was like devastated when she saw the body cam of Gabby Petito and Brian Laundrie of that day when they were stopped by the cops. She was devastated. She was like, my daughter was going through that, and when she was informed by what happened that day, she did not know that there was calls that were what's it called, that people were calling the cops stating that a man was slapping a girl, and that was Gabby that he was slapping.
Oh, is it me, baby?
So it was very sad, and it was just devastating to
You know,
even
that
think
happens to
that.
me too.
Well,
I just think back in like your past, you know, what's happened to you, and I imagine what those people did to you.
yeah, it's not
It's
fun.
sad because you're so boyo, 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 boyo.
Oh, baby.
Shit
Yeah.
angers me.
And the fact that, Gabby was a very nice person.
Boyo, boyo, boyo.
Yeah, it was just very sad to think that Gabby she was such a great person. She was from what her mom was talking about, and then her friends, they were like,
She
she was
was
an amazing
nice.
person. She was really nice. She had a big heart. She never wanted to hurt nobody. And the fact that, she had to go through that situation and she could not get out of her relationship really devastated everyone. And the fact that Brian had the ability to do that to her and strangle her, regardless if it was because he was trying to get her out of her misery, which honestly, I don't believe that. I don't believe that, not one bit.
Yeah,
Because
not anymore.
if he were to be able to slap her and do all that stuff, he was able to kill her. Usually, that's what leads to it.
Well, yeah.
That is what leads to it. Usually, that's what happens because they're
Or you
really not there.
strangle her so much
That she just dies.
that she died.
And the fact that the mattress was also not found. Why was the mattress not found? Supposedly he was in the van. Remember? He was outside next to a fire. Why would a mattress be gone and never found? Why would he dispose of a mattress?
You think he killed her in the van
I think so.
and then disposed of her body outside?
I think so.
And he planned it as if like the creek and everything.
He made that story up. My opinion, he made that story up. He wrote up
When
the
was the
story
hour-long conversation?
with his mom. August 29th. That's when they got the attorney. And then August 30th, he drove back to Florida from Wyoming in her van. But that's the story of Gabby Petito. It's such a devastating story, and it's really sad. There was many times where I wanted to tear up. While watching the documentary, I was crying because it was just really sad. And even to think like she was in that type of position, and then the fact that I've been in a situation where it was hard to get out, but I wasn't in an abusive relationship. I was more in an emotional relationship, and it was really hard for me. And I kind of I downgraded myself a lot, and I think Gabby did that too with Brian. And I don't think that it was okay for him to manipulate her in that sense and to make her think that it was all her fault. I know how Gabby feels, and I know the things that she went through because I felt like that. I felt like I was in the wrong. I was always wrong. I always had to say sorry. Like there was just many situations where I was manipulated and I was made it seem like I was in fault. I was at fault in everything.
And it now turned into PTSD.
And now I have PTSD.
And like when we have like discussions and whatnot, she feels like she's back in,
Yeah.
what she felt, what
Yeah.
you felt.
Yeah. So it's just very devastating, and it's just sad that she had to go through all of that. And thankfully, they're doing this whole foundation, and a lot of people have came to Gabby's mom, and she's like, they'll be like, I saw Gabby's story, and it helped me get out of my relationship.
And just for everybody to know, arguments in relationships are okay, but once it starts getting physical after an argument,
Not even physical, even like emotionally,
when
like
you're
manipulated.
downgrading, when
You're being disrespected.
when you're being disrespected, like downgraded, like completely, that's when you should like talk to somebody, be like, hey, this is going on with me, I don't know if this is okay, like what is your opinion on this? And yeah, always talk to somebody, see
Yeah.
what they think, because you're blinded by love. You sometimes don't see the things that are threatening your life.
I really hope you guys enjoyed this video.
Leave a like, comment, subscribe, comment down below what you guys think about the video.
I hope you guys stay tuned for the next video.
Bye.